Unqualified drivers are operating 80,000-pound trucks on our highways. This is happening because states knowingly broke federal law, and now the feds are hitting back with some pretty massive financial threats.
And it's not just, some bureaucratic mess. This is a systemic failure. We're talking about state defiance that has led directly to catastrophic outcomes on our roads.
That's exactly it. So today, we're doing a deep dive into the federal documents. We've got DOT, the Department of Transportation audit reports, press releases from the FMCSA and from ICE.
Right. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Our mission here is really to understand the complete breakdown in the integrity of commercial driver's licenses, or CDLs, across several states.
And these documents, they reveal a widespread regulatory failure. I mean, you have states that prioritize these lax policies, sometimes overtly political ones, over just fundamental safety.
And the results were lethal. It's forcing this massive federal intervention, maybe the biggest we've seen in CDL oversight in years.
The safety stakes just could not be higher. You saw the preliminary crash data for 2024.
I did. The numbers are absolutely chilling. It's nearly 5,000 people. 4,909, to be precise, dead in crashes with large trucks and buses.
These are not minor accidents. And the federal government is now explicitly linking these tragedies to unqualified drivers who are operating illegally.
And the response has been so immediate. ICE just executed Operation Highway Sentinel. What was that?
That operation resulted in over 100 arrests in California alone. Illegal alien truck drivers. And it was launched directly in response to a string of fatal crashes. So this is shifting from, standard immigration enforcement into urgent public safety.
And it all comes back to state negligence, right? A huge federal audit found this systemic noncompliance across multiple states.
Take Colorado.
Colorado, yeah. The audit there found that roughly 22% of its non-domiciled CDLs were issued illegally.
22%. That's not just a few mistakes. That's 1 out of every 5 licenses being improperly granted.
And now there's a price tag. The Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, is publicly threatening to withhold $24 million in federal highway funding from Colorado.
That is a huge stick. If they keep what he calls slow walking, the required license revocations, the state is going to face some immediate and very severe financial consequences.
So we really need to understand how this happened. How did states let this danger get onto our roads? And what is the federal government doing specifically to make sure it never happens again? Okay, so let's unpack this intentional state defiance. We're talking about these non-domiciled CDLs.
Right, and just to be clear for everyone, this is a license meant for non-citizens who have a specific lawful employment status in the U.S. for a set period of time.
And the sources we're looking at make it crystal clear this wasn't an accident, not a typo.
No, not at all. We have audit documents that point to Colorado making a calculated statewide policy decision way back in 2016. Yes, a decision to just disregard federal law. The state essentially decided it would grant trucking licenses to certain ineligible individuals, mostly Mexican nationals, and just bypass the federal verification steps.
That's incredible. I mean, what's the rationale for a state to knowingly ignore a federal safety mandate like that?
Well, the justification seems to have been driven by a political choice, really, to accommodate non-resident populations regardless of federal rules. But the consequence is a fundamental compromise of highway safety.
And it wasn't just about who got a license, but for how long, right? The audit found states like California were issuing CDLs that expired years after the driver's work visa had already expired.
Exactly. That's the other massive loophole.
Yeah.
If a driver's work permit is only good for, say, 6 months, how is the state giving them a license that's valid for 5 years?
It sounds like it guarantees a legal operation.
It does. I mean, we found specific examples in the audit report. CDLs issued that expired 4 years, 8 years. I think there was even one that was 9 years beyond the expiration date of their legal stay.
9 years.
So the state was effectively guaranteeing these individuals could operate an 80,000-pound truck long after their legal status to even be in the country had ended. That's a deliberate regulatory failure.
And this disregard has had catastrophic results. It's exactly why the federal government launched these sweeps.
Right. And ICE Deputy Director Madison Sheehan, she linked it directly. She said these policies are costing American lives and that these drivers terrorize roads all over the country.
They're drawing a straight line from state policy to deaths on the highway.
Which brings up the question of what specific safety standards were being ignored. The big one is language. Federal regulations explicitly require the CDL skills test to be administered only in English.
And that's not a bias thing. It's about safety. It's so a driver can understand commands, road signs, instructions from a first responder.
Precisely. And the sources give us a truly tragic example of what happens when that's ignored. The case of an Indian national. He allegedly failed his CDL test 10 times. 10 times, mostly because of struggles with English proficiency. And yet, he was somehow issued a license, first in Washington, then later in California.
Just think about that failure. The system lets him slip through, and he's now accused of causing a crash in Florida that killed 3 people. He jackknifed his 18-wheeler doing an illegal U-turn.
Just shows how one state's failure impacts every single state the truck drives through.
So this is where the federal government pivots from auditing to, well, acting. The DOT is using its full leverage now.
Full financial and administrative leverage. Secretary Duffy's message was pretty blunt. He said, Colorado doesn't get to pick and choose what federal rules it follows.
And that threat to pull $24 million in highway funding, that's immediate.
Oh, it's very real. It's designed to get their attention, for sure. But the threat actually goes way beyond the money.
How so?
Well, the DOT, through the FMCSA, has the authority to actually decertify Colorado's entire CDL program.
Decertify? That sounds severe. What does that mean in practical terms?
It's the nuclear option. It would strip the state of its ability to issue or renew commercial licenses, period.
So every truck driver in Colorado would have to go to, what, Kansas? Wyoming?
Exactly, just to renew their license. And any Colorado-issued licenses could suddenly become invalid nationwide. It would paralyze the state's commercial transit. It's a tool so severe it basically forces compliance.
So while the DOT is waving that giant checkbook, you have federal law enforcement, IC and HSI out there, literally cleaning up the mess on the highways.
That's Operation Highway Sentinel. It's not just about licenses, it's a strategic effort. They targeted companies and drivers in California's Central Valley, made over 100 arrests of illegal alien truckers from Russia, Uzbekistan, Colombia, all over.
And what's the rationale there? Is it just safety, or is there something bigger at play?
It's multi-layered. First, yes, it's an urgent safety intervention. They're removing an immediate physical risk from the road. But second, it's also targeting known criminal organizations within the trucking industry.
Criminal organization?
Yeah, groups involved in narcotics trafficking, human smuggling.
Yeah.
When you have thousands of unaccountable drivers, it's the perfect cover for criminal enterprise.
So you've got the DOT threatening financial ruin on one side and federal agents physically removing drivers on the other. This is really an unprecedented pushback.
Okay, so we've seen the reaction. Let's talk about the solution. The federal government is trying to redesign the system so this can't happen again.
Right, they're not just reacting. The FMCSA has enacted what they're calling an emergency interim final rule. It's designed to permanently close the gaps that states were exploiting.
And the core of that is tightening eligibility for these non-domiciled CDLs.
Dramatically tightening it. They're making sure any foreign national getting a CDL has not only legal status, but a documented, current, and very specific reason for employment here.
So they're limiting it to only certain visa types. Which ones made the cut?
It's very specific. Just 3 employment-based categories. The H-2A visa, which is for temporary agricultural workers.
The H-2B for temporary non-agricultural workers, and the E-2 visa for treaty investors. If you have any other visa or your papers are expired, you are flat out ineligible.
That makes sense. Those are all linked to very specific temporary and federally vetted jobs. It brings the license back to its original intent.
Precisely. And now there are strict documentation mandates at every single point of interaction.
So what do states have to check now? What's the new process?
An applicant has to present an unexpired foreign passport and an unexpired form I-94, that's the arrival departure record, and that form has to explicitly show one of those 3 required visa categories.
And they have to do that every time for a renewal, a transfer,
Every single time. It's the new baseline. And this is the key process improvement. It takes the guesswork out of it for state clerks.
How so?
State DMVs are now required to query the SAVE system. It stands for Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlement.
So it's a federal database check.
It is. It's a quick check for the state clerk to instantly verify a document's legitimacy, its status, and its expiration date against federal immigration records. It immediately shuts down the kind of fraud we were seeing.
And crucially, it closes that huge loophole we talked about, the one that let licenses be valid for years after a person's legal stay ended.
That is definitively over. Renewals for these CDLs now have to be done in person. No more remote renewals. And the license expiration date has to match the I-94 expiration date or expire in 1 year, whichever comes first.
So no more 8-year licenses for someone with a 6-month visa.
That practice is gone. It was a core safety risk, and it's been eliminated.
It's pretty clear the FMCSA had to step in and basically act as the architect, fixing the blueprints after the states, the contractors, went completely off plan. They're restoring integrity to the whole system. So to sum up our deep dive today, federal audits exposed states that were knowingly breaking the law, issuing illegal CDLs to thousands of non-citizens.
And this led directly to tragic fatal crashes all across the country.
This complete disregard for safety prompted a really aggressive two-pronged federal response. On one side, you have the DOT threatening millions in penalties, even decertification of state programs.
And on the other, you have federal enforcement like ICE and HSI, physically removing unqualified drivers from the road and targeting the criminal networks that were enabled by all this.
And looking forward, the FMCSA has put in these strict new rules: mandatory verification, in-person renewals, federal database checks, all to ensure only legally authorized drivers get these credentials.
This whole situation really highlights that fundamental tension, between state autonomy and the absolute need for national safety standards.
Yeah.
When state policies put the public in danger by putting unqualified drivers behind the wheel of an 80,000-pound truck, the federal government is now showing it will use its most powerful tools to remove that risk.
Given that this whole debacle stems from states and the federal government just not being aligned on safety, the critical question for you to think about is this: should the federal government just create a single national CDL issuing authority and take the entire process, the safety test, the verification, out of the hands of the states for good?